This is the R in Real Estate.
Thank you for tuning in for another segment of our podcast. I am your host, Asia Williams, broker CEO of Asia Realty by Moland Group, and I have the absolute pleasure of having one of our artists week is realtors. We got a lot of artists this weekend. Miss Amanda, introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Jennings, and most of all, I love real estate. So let's get into it.
Absolutely. So yeah, this week, yes, realtors. Look, that's our reposition for having our sellers shift to sold.
Yes, from shift to sold.
Yes, stuck to sold. So yes, how is the market? The market is great. We're going to start off with that.
The market is great.
Is what we're speaking.
Mm-hmm. The market is great. The market is active. You have a lot of people that are wanting to list their homes. It's just more so about strategizing to make sure that you get it sold. Absolutely. In this market that we're in.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to know the right strategy to get that done and have the right conversation with the sellers.
Yes, and it is. I know I'm been speaking on skill based.
It
is skill based, and I know right now because I know people are saying it's a buyer's market, right?
Mm-hmm. It has shifted,
and I know some buyers was on the fence. We've been having conversations. We did see the month of June that it started to pick up.
Yep.
I know we our brokerage had quite a few closings, more than usual. So we do see that it's picked up. A lot of our buyers are off the fence and buying. There is a lot of different ways and options, I would say, with that. And as far as our sellers goes, I know some of our sellers has been stuck. We had some in the office, about 6 listings that did sell. But yeah, so I guess let's definitely with the strategies.
Well, firstly, you want to start with, so one of the main things that the sellers are, they're concerned when they're wanting to sell. They're not quite sure. They're more concerned about where they're going next, those finances, what the current rates are, if they can get that same mortgage, where they're going, even if they can have something in that same location, so basically, as a professional realtor, then you want to go in and our job is to calm them down, talk to them speak to them about the things that we actually want to touch bases on, as far as, for example, we speak to them about their finances, so that we know exactly how that's going to look. Of course, they're calculating their equity and what that looks like. So we have to know, hey, well, your takeaway is going to be this. And, just so that they can know, that's a resolve for them when they know, okay, we'll have this amount. It looks somewhere around in this area. And if they did want to move, they know what they'd be able to move over, save, invest, put down on a new home, things of that nature. Also, another thing is, aside from the finances, they want to have control. So you want them to not be fearful, but more so faithful in that work, in those words. They're trying to control a lot. They like to, they love their home. You're dealing with someone who might have been in their home for years upon years. Those are memories that they have connected to that home. And even though we do understand when you say you're ready to sell and you trust us to sell your home, we get in there and strategize to get that part done.
And we want to be able to trust the process.
You want to be able to trust the process. It is a process. However, once again, when you're selling, we do understand that, hey, you'll take you away from you. That's your baby, but we got to pry you off of it in some kind of way. And so, we start to use techniques around that to get them comfortable with, okay, I said I wanted to move, I'm going. Whether it's, we have to know what that motivation is. Is it a timeline? Do you have to, some have to relocate? And so you just really want to, once again, have those personal conversations, get in deep with those conversations so that you all have an understanding of how these puzzle pieces are going to fit together for this sale. And every sale is unique also. So this seller might have this going on and their house might sell quick and you might be on the same street as them. But you don't have the same situation. Something might be going on with your your home differently. You might have need touch-ups, different things like that we will touch on a little bit later. But just things like that, we want to definitely have those conversations and just let them know the real ins and outs of what selling looks like, even if there is a home listed on their street,
right,
or up the street.
Right, because a lot of times, like we have seen in this previous or current market where things may sit longer.
Yes.
But when it comes to the strategy and the skill base, you have to definitely and you know my big thing too is always like building those relationships, continue to market throughout the process. But with the homes, because so I'll just be transparent as far as you know what I see within our brokerage. And with sellers, you don't want to be stuck, but you want to be able to maneuver. You want to be able to get that house sold,
right,
and sold as quickly as possible. And I would say too, in this market, our strategy is having your buyer, right, but also have a backup.
Yep. Always have a backup.
Because you want to be able to, and then again, like I was saying, earlier about being transparent, just far as a property that we had within our brokerage, right? The home was on the market. It was on the market for about 18 days, right? So it's so it's on the market. Started to get in offers, right? Then once the offers started coming in, the seller ended up receiving about 4.
Yep.
So chose the buyer. Again, you still in contact, just the process, because we speaking, yes, it's gonna close, but things happen.
Right.
Unfortunately, the buyer chose to bag out 2 days before closing, right?
Yeah.
So that means then, guess what? The house is back on the market. The seller's already like, okay, look, I need to sell. We got to move on.
Yes.
It's back on the market. So then what do you do? The strategy is you want to go back to those that were already, sending offers. Have they found something? They haven't.
Go back and circle prospect to those previous agents first.
Absolutely. Circle prospect. Yes. Absolutely.
First.
And you want to be able to, so being back on the market, yes, I like things to close, once it's on the contract, you already went through all the due diligence.
Yes.
However, if it's back on the market, it doesn't mean to give up or the seller is stuck.
Right.
That's what we're talking about, really. You're stuck
to
sold. But once back on the market again, you circle prospecting.
Yeah.
You going back, you marketing, you putting it back. Okay, it's back on the market. You're on the phone.
Yes.
You're trying to still get a buyer for the property, connected with some great agents.
Right.
And then in this situation, yes, it worked because once it's back on the market, you circle prospecting. Yes. And guess what? Buyer comes along. On the Wednesday, by Friday, you still talking about it. Goes on the contract Friday. Once it's on the contract Friday, hey, the buyer still wants everything was still done with title, everything from the previous buyer. Yeah. The attorney, hey, they want to stick the same attorney. Attorney like, okay, everything was ready from the last buyer.
Yeah, from the last
it can close on Monday. And it closed on Monday.
Easy, right? Easy.
So so that's just like the next day, basically Friday, and then it closes on Monday.
Right. And we understand that part can be overwhelming, but it happens. So it's like, this is the real in real estate. Like, these things happen. Yes, you want that perfect transaction each and every time, but you just never know. And that's why it's so important that we always communicate with those sellers. And even, when they get those offers in, they select who they would like to have it first. They say, okay, this one is the one. Okay, and we're like, okay, and we agree with that. Okay, but also those other 3 or 2 or however many are sitting out there, we also go ahead and let them know that they're a backup offer. And then the sellers know that, hey, these 3 know that they're backup offers. So if anything was to occur, we revisit that conversation and say, well, so remember those other 3 backup offers that we had, we're going to go ahead and reach back out to them. And it does ease their mind knowing that they already had that there. The goal is, when we're marketing, to always get multiple offers, to be able to have those backup offers. And
then of course, you're going to do the work to make sure, things are in place to be able to close. Yes. However, things happen. And then
not all the time things happen, right? But things do happen, and that's the part where we have to be real.
What they'll happen.
Yep.
We had the process. Yes. So it's like, definitely you can only choose, of course, one backup. However, you got all of these prospects of people that submitted offer or was interested in the property, but you want to be able to continue. And then in sellers, you're not stuck either. As far as with homes on the market, yes, we've seen, you know, sometimes where they're sitting longer, but two key components. The home is in immaculate, great condition. And the home is priced right. Mm-hmm. You don't want to overprice. And yes,
price
I know
to sell is going to be the biggest one. It's a top. It's
price
a top.
To sell.
Yes. And strategically, when we know we price it to sell, we still always go back and check the market. Like we're checking the market daily to see how things are moving. Because if something is shifting, or if something came on the market and it might be a little bit under. You know, we just know we're just watching certain things. If it's over, we're watching certain things. Like, but we're watching daily. When that happens, that's how we know how to strategize with the price. But 10 times out of 10, we price it right. We price it right because we do our homework in the beginning. That's the main thing. So that's what I love about us.
Yes, and then we find that when the appraisal come out, the appraisal is
the appraisal is always spot on. So no matter what, it's always spot on. It's because we do that homework. And even with that, like that's another thing. And this is in regards to the sellers, what we have definitely seen. I know I have, where you know their house is priced and it's priced right. Then somebody come on the market and they might have been overpriced, or you know, and then so now the seller might start saying, they might start saying, you know, hey, what if we increase it 10K? But you know, being realistic, they can't increase it 10K. And this is the thing about like strategizing, knowing how to once again explore the market to price that house right. Like we know that we priced it right already. So okay, they came in over 10K. They might not need to have work done, or you know, it's different. It's different. Right. It could be the square footage on that next home. It could be the year built. It's just certain things that definitely come into play. That you strategize about, and then they might have priced it that high just to be in competition. Who knows? We don't know.
And then the thing is, and you don't want to price it too high because then guess what it's gonna do? It's gonna sit.
It's gonna sit. So you're gonna help all the other houses sit. When you price too high, check the market. We check the market for that too. And so if I see that you've been sitting on the market, so like for example, have a listing that's coming soon, and but in the past, this home was listed for a while. However, in doing the homework, I was able to tell that individual, ma'am, when your house was listed, it was listed too high, and it helped 12 other homes sell that was right up the street from it. That looked the same. Had we dropped the price a little bit lower, you would have been one of those under contract and sold. And that she understood, and that's why we're now at the point where we are now. So we know that we're going to list and we know that we're going to sell. 10 out of 10. Yes, because it's right.
You want to be able to do as much homework as possible prior to listing at home.
Prior to listing.
Like checking out the area, knowing the area, like you said.
What's
been around there. Like what's selling. Because another example, one we listed recently, checked out the area, the market. We know there was a home in the front that's been sitting. The seller needs to sell and relocate. The seller's like, hey, what can you do differently? Because I know my neighbor house has been sitting for a while. Looked at the neighbor house. Okay, this house, yours has 3 stories. You gotta have a basement. Neighbor does not. It's beautiful townhomes. Your house is in great condition. We priced it right. And 2 days later, you off the market. As soon as it's listed. But it's just like just going in, just knowing the competition.
Know your competition.
Knowing the condition, because conditions still matter. Have we had a market before where you can basically, I'm just gonna be honest, sell anything and it's gonna sell? We didn't have a lot of inventory.
It's definitely knowing the condition. Knowing the market, and also what I was touching on earlier, knowing the motivation behind the seller. Because if you're serious, if you say, hey, I have to be gone by in 2 months or 2 months or less. Okay. Well, firstly, right now, average days on market is around 60 days. That's 2 months already. Okay, so we're definitely going to make sure we have to make sure it's priced right immediately.
Yes.
That's the first thing. We don't even want to play with the numbers to see how much you can get. No, we just got to price it right. Okay, yes. And then we have to know all the ins and outs. We do things for the sellers, pre-inspections, things like that help. Also, just making sure that we add on things. We have a home warranty America that we add on with our listings. We love to add on so that those buyers can have that. These are things that the buyers won't be concerned about. We know that we address all these things up front if needed, if the seller didn't already have it available. But these things, if you want to sell your house in 60 days or less, we have to do everything. And then also another thing is waiting on a perfect offer. That's another big one. And some sellers would love to list here and then get over asking. That's all fine and well. However, if we don't get that in that time frame, what are we doing? We have to explore. Yeah, we encourage our sellers to look at and consider all offers. Of course, that makes sense. You know, they don't like to be lowball, y'all, and we know y'all don't like to be lowball. But we encourage the sellers to explore the offers, every offer that comes in, especially when there's a time frame that you have to be moved, because we can make that could be your offer. But if you just skip past it because it might have been, I'm going to be honest, sometimes we typically get asking price, I'm going to be honest, but they might have come under $2,000. I remember I had one that where the buyer came in under $2,000. But guess what? The seller accepted the offer. You know why? Because she had somewhere to be. She had somewhere to be. She knew that she wanted to purchase a home in a different location at a certain time. And she said, you know what? We got to do it. When the contract closed.
The expectation is, yes, you can get asking price you may be under, but then also in this market, and then you set the expectations and let so know, because there may be a situation where you have to pay some closing costs.
Yes, it is.
So, and you're looking at too, like, what is your bottom line? That way, because of course you want to make sure if they got a loan to pay off, right? You definitely want to consider that loan,
which most of them do,
right? And then of course you have your commission. You want to make sure. So you want to make sure, with their bottom line, but then still, if there's room where some closing costs can be paid, but
always factor that in the beginning,
right? And you want to be able to the need, what the seller need is, meet or exceed that need. However, you want to be able to know that if you may have to pay some closing.
Yes, that's true. That is true with the sellers. But definitely important to understand and remember what that motivation is. Can't get lost in everything else. You'll get so tied up in the numbers and everything else. And guess what? You done got 3 offers already. And so are we going to still wait on a 4th offer to come, or we're going to go ahead and explore these 3 offers because they actually came over and the buyer signed? Like, they're ready. So it's more so about just definitely knowing that motivation. And once again, having those conversations up front. So all of that stuff, we already know if something has to be done or might have to be done. We already know what they can give towards closing for the buyer. Those conversations are already had. So, of course, when those options do come in, those offers, you had those 3 different options. You pick the best one out of those, especially because we're within your time frame to move. We had a assignment. We understood it. And then we're here. So, and that's why we always get them to close, because we have those conversations with the sellers. You have to be strategic about how you're selling the home. Just listing and just throwing them out there, that doesn't necessarily help you. And also,
you gotta.
My advice too would be, don't get so fixated on a net or what a bottom line is, because you just never know. We'll be somewhere in the ballpark. Those numbers could fluctuate.
Can go up or down.
They could fluctuate. So it's like, we know the ballpark. I like to tell them the ballpark. Okay, somewhere between here and here. But to be dead set on a number, that's one thing, because when they hear it, they're like, then they start planning that Vegas trip and that and then that other house that they want, and then that down payment they want to put on that car. But then it's like, so just give them a ballpark where it's like, okay, well, we knew it could fall somewhere between here. And then they're more comfortable knowing that it was supposed to fall somewhere between here, and it does, versus you're supposed to get back such and such K, and you got back this much K. And you had already planned for this much K. Now you mad. And so we always just have to be realistic about what it takes to get the home sold. And then we let them know all the strategies up front. When we market, oh my goodness, we're going to social media, we're sending out the flyers, we're on foot, we're door knocking, we're open housing. We're doing it all for them. So we definitely make sure that we're putting the homes in front of the buyers so that they can see it here, there, everywhere. They're in all of the United States. It's not just even in Georgia. How we market, right? Well, we
get calls from
from California, Ohio, Look, even overseas, that's crazy. But it's because of how we market, and social media is big for us to market on. And we've definitely gotten those buyers coming from just posting it on social media. Never even been here, but want the house. Right. So it's all about marketing and strategizing, and then just being realistic, having that conversation with the sellers, and letting them know exactly, what that looks like for them. You have to be realistic. Don't walk into something that's an investor's property.
Communication.
Right. Yeah. Don't walk into something that's an investor's property. That should probably be an investor's property. And then it, you have them thinking that it can sell as if it's top, already done, move-in ready. And when so much work has to be done, you can't price it like that. So you have to price it for the investors if it's going to be an investor's property. It's just we have to strategize.
Yeah, exactly. And your sellers, and they have options, but the strategies, the skill base. How could you say in closing, position yourself in the market, like with the opportunity?
Elaborate in this a little bit.
So I would say yes. If they unsure of selling right now, because I know buyers.
Well, call me.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was serious about that, but seriously.
Yeah.
To position yourself, it's really gonna take in my opinion, because a lot of times they don't know what they don't know. So definitely get with an individual, someone that's educated on selling homes. That's going to be a realtor. And it's really about having a conversation. But also, like, if you have any, you can do a declutter. If you want to sell, start decluttering. Keep the lawn maintenance. And then, you can even do a look around yourself. You know what's torn, right? Your curb appeal. So there are certain things that you can go ahead and start doing to prepare yourself. Definitely a declutter, because that's going to be one of the main things. I hate to say it, but
cost, because I know a lot of times, and I know some sellers don't have the means or the funds to try to go through and get all these things done. But it can be those small things, detailed things that wouldn't cost.
Yep, that'll help you out. And then also, sometimes a seller, even before they hit the market, they'll do a yard sale. Not everyone does it, but if you have like these antiques or things that are just sitting around, even clothes, things that you don't want to just throw away, but you might need a little extra cash.
Else's treasure.
Right. It could be someone else's treasure. Kids' toys, anything, something that used lightly. They'll have yard sales where they can come up on some cash. And so, hey, now we done decluttered and we made some money.
Right.
So we even encourage that when they want to do something that they don't know, like, what to do with all of this. We can just do a yard sale real quick and see what happens there. And then, we can pack up the rest and ship it on out. But definitely you want to get your home ready. And then also, one big thing too, I say if they can, I know we check it too, but like just be aware of what's going on with your title, things of that nature.
Yes.
Know what your what your payoff is. Yes. Right. Know what you owe. Know what your payoff is. You want to just get all the information. Of course, we dig in, but you will also, like, if you're doing this homework on your own, you'll know. Your equity, what you have to pay off versus what your house. Right. You won't have any surprises.
Your closing attorneys definitely, gonna pull a title and then, have different things. I know in some of our counties, they take on the water bill automatically as a lien, even though it may be just $35
right.
for the upcoming bill.
Right. But know if you owe HOA, all of if you have an HOA, you check into all these things. And then you can say, because the thing is you don't want to not do these things, and then all these things come up when you get the age and you say, list me Friday. Today is Wednesday. You're saying list me Friday. we want now we could, but we gonna have to tackle all these issues.
Looking at your numbers, what my numbers look like when it's time for them to do the settlement statement for us to view it. But yeah, just actually knowing these things up front, much as possible, you know. But definitely knowing those things up front.
And being realistic. Like, I mean, we know that with resales, all of them are not going to be super brand new. You know, this is not new construction. So new construction is that's a whole different ballgame. But when it's a resale, you know, even like you know, if you've been walking around and you've had a leak, or, you know, if you, so it's like tackle these things, because the inspector is going to, these are things that will hold up an inspection and an appraisal. When you don't have certain things intact, that the inspector will point it out, and of course the buyer sees that. But see, had you went ahead and tackled that, or we added in, so let's just say, and I don't want to say necessarily a leak, y'all. I mean, we definitely want to have that fixed. But like just something like, let's just say kitchen cabinets or something, something hanging or something, right? Tight, something like that. I mean, you know, Home Depot, $7 for some nails, or you know, and just to get that taken care of, where it's like, you don't want that to come up in the inspection report, something that simple, right? And then the buyer's looking like, oh, we got to get that fixed, and then we got to get that fixed. And then it's like, that causes the buyer to like go into a frenzy. And then now they send over this amendment that, you know, is
or
3 sheets long.
Or $30,000 less in price.
Yeah, or $30,000 less in price, because you that's why you have to be realistic about where your house is, right? Because of minor things. If you can go ahead and get it fixed, we can sell you more up here, you know. But if there are things that you know you don't want to fix, something like that, we have to tackle that up front. And that could come off the house price, right? Or you can opt in to give it to the buyer.
To do as is, but it's just like again, knowing those things up front, the options, the strategy, like what we need to angle or go with with this being as is, or, right? You know, so it's definitely, you want to get with skill based, right? Skill based. Our expertise, as y'all can see, Amanda expert with listings and our sellers, but we have some amazing agents. You definitely sellers do not have to be stuck. You will go to sold, so it will be from stuck to sold. Don't ever feel like you're stuck. Buyers definitely are buying.
They are buying.
So
y'all, they out there.
You have to with our strategies, getting with us, but definitely.
And before we close too, just because you said that about the buyer, so because we have shifted into a buyer's market, and this is very important right now, because the sellers had the upper hand at first, right? But now we have a lot more homes that have come onto the market. So the buyers have a choice. So now it's like, if you really do want to sell, we have to be realistic about for real getting it sold, because we got A over here, B over here, and C over here, and the buyer's like, you know, they juggling. They like, well, we can just pick, but you like pick me. And so we're the ones that are saying, we're the ones that are going to do that strategy that says pick this. So that's why it's important to definitely get with the skill-based, educated listing agent, and we can get your home sold. But we are definitely in the buyer's market now. So anyone wanting to sell, keep that in mind. We definitely want to have that realistic conversation.
We want to be able to, and like you say, with buyers having options or choices, what they're gonna look at, they're looking at price.
They're looking at price.
They're looking at the condition.
They're looking at the condition. I mean, and then the thing is, it also, I mean, honestly, there are some that are really considering those closing costs. So I mean, if you can throw out anything, you know, we once again we discuss that once we get to that. Right. Once we get to that table and we sit down and discuss that listing, before we list, we know what we can give, and then the buyer, we also make it shine like a bright little diamond over here in the listing description. So
and get
you see all that's being offered.
It's not sitting. So we've been doing a good job, because
we actually had homes going under contract that have not been on the market. Right. Like we list them and they're going under in 7 days. Whereas we're in a market where they're sitting for 60 days. But we get them in under 7 days, like, and then we have showings day after day after day, and that's not, we watch the footwork and everything. So yeah, it's important to definitely get with someone that's skill based.
Yes, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you all for tuning in. Look forward to you tuning in with us again next week. Have an amazing day.
Yes, bye y'all. Let's get sold.
Thank you for tuning in with the R in Real Estate. Thank you to our sponsors, R.S. Johnson Legal, Real Estate Closing Firm, Will and Probate, Kelvin Pearson with State Farm Insurance, Fleeta Paul with Diamond Residential, Gerard Williams with G2L Residential and Commercial Inspections, and Adhesia with AR The Brand.